Good morning, all. I hope that you're all safe and sound at your home. I am Ashish Angantiar. Welcome today's speaker for this virtual talk, Professor Santosh Aram. I welcome you, sir, and all participants on behalf of IQAC and DBT Government of India under Star College scheme of Deccan Education Society's Ferguson College, Pune. I'm just giving you the brief introduction about speaker. Professor Santosh is a senior professor of physical chemistry at Department of Physics, Savitribai Phule, Pune University, Pune. He was also work as a former director of UGC National Center for Nanoscience and Nanotechnology at University of Mumbai. Professor Santosh has obtained his MSc from IIT Bombay and PhD degree from TIFR Mumbai. In his postdoctoral tenure at University of Texas, Austin, under the mentorship of Professor Alan J. Bard, he brought out this unique application of scanning electrochemical microscopy and voltammetry techniques to study the semiconductor quantum dots dispersions. For the first time, this methodology has been developed to estimate the position of the electronic states of the quantum dots. The work is published in a highly reputed journal like JACS and Science and similar high impact journals. Presently at SPPU, he and his research group is actively work on electrochemical method to develop nanophase material for energy application. Also, this group is working on CZTS and perovskite material for solar cell application, graphene and graphitic nitride based material for hydrogen evolution reactions, oxygen reduction reactions, and similar nanophase material for fuel cell applications. He has guided around 20 PhD students, 3 postdoc fellows. He has attracted several international funding, including European Commission and national funding agencies like DST SERB, BRNS, DBT, etc. He has recipient of several awards, including DST Bioscos Fellowship. Then there is a Fulbright Fellowship in 2013. Also received Best Teacher Awards in Chemistry from Tata Chemicals. Led Professor Vijay Award from Pune University and MM Sharma Award for Science and Technology for Marathi Vigyan Parishad. With this brief introduction, I request Professor Santosh Ram sir to give a talk on scanning electrochemical microscopy. You were yet one more arrow in electrochemistry here. So, Professor Santosh Ram, thank you, sir.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for attending this virtual talk. And at the outset, I thank Dr. Tiwar and the management of Ferguson College for giving me this opportunity to interact with you guys. Today morning, I have chosen the title to just share with you. It is going to be a kind of what we say a tutorial talk, mostly focused on students and young people who would like to start their career in this particular field. I have chosen to talk on scanning electrochemical microscopy, that is sometimes called SECM. Okay, which how are going to use this technique in material research. Idea is, I have very weird feeling. Actually, you must be having that same feeling that people kind of a stage artist is now taking part in feature film like thing, or people who are doing orchestra or live sessions now they are going to give bathroom singing kind of thing. So I hope you will enjoy my bathroom singing. Okay, typically I'm going to occupy you around 45 minutes, and after that I will give you enough time for asking the questions and queries. Okay, so we'll proceed. This slide, what I'm now showing, is basically, I don't need to explain to you in this pandemic of COVID actually, and lot of health issues. We are going to have more such health issue in the future, and we're going to have water and food insecurities. These two issues we are, especially in a country like India, we're going to face in 21st century. And this is the technological challenge we are going to face our young generation. Okay, and why it is happening? It is because of drastic climate change. Last year we all are experienced this very weird kind of monsoon season actually. Okay, and why this weird climate change is obviously because of a lot of our economy which is driven by fossil fuel. Is all you know that This is basically our contribution. Basically, is one of the renewable power sources, basically 200 gigawatt by 2022. Out of which 60 gigawatt we are going to add by wind energy. We are both have plenty in our country, you know that. And I would like to highlight recent development, that is Renew Power Limited, which is a company of solar cell and wind energy. In fact, they auction now 400 megawatt of rooftop installations for just rupees 3.52, around 3.5 paise actually per unit actually, which is quite cheap. It is almost comparable to coal price, which is around 2.5 rupees per unit actually. So we can see now how the drastically the cost of this renewable power source is coming down. 400 megawatt is quite a big amount of energy. In fact, this 400 megawatt, it can be powered whole Pune city actually, for your information. So it's a quite amount of power. In fact, the previous all these players used to provide power only in the daytime. This company basically is backing up whole power by lithium power sources actually. So you'll get 24 hours power out of this. So it's a very interesting part. Well, there are already we have 70,000 megawatt installation by this time. Okay, and a lot of things is going on. If you are interested, you can go through all the websites of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy Sources. Okay, so a lot of interesting things going on. However, besides solar cell, what we need are the device which can store the energy, that is electricity. So all we know that we need batteries, we need a supercapacitor, we need the electrolyzer by which can generate the hydrogen gas that can be used in the fuel cell. Okay, and a lot of things we need beyond this solar cell. But you must have realized all these devices, including solar cell, battery, supercapacitor, and electrolyzer, what we need basically, what is common thing in all these devices is that energy is generated and stored by transferring of electron at electrolyte interface. And when you talk about transfer of charge across electrolyte interface, already you know we are talking about electrochemistry. Okay, it's a multidisciplinary science with a very bright future. Okay, what is electrochemistry? We are learned from 12th standard. Okay, it is basically a transfer of electrochemistry dealt with transfer of charge between two conducting phase. One is called electrode, okay, and other is called electrolyte. And as a physical chemist, I'm always been interested in thermodynamics, that is delta G0, and kinetics of charge transfer at electrode-electrolyte interface. And if I understand this thermodynamics and kinetics of charge transfer, obviously I can have chances, or I have opportunity to develop better solar cell, fuel cell, battery, supercapacitor, water splitting reaction. Once I understand this nicely, I can definitely develop all these devices. So in short, there are a lot of opportunities for physical chemists to investigate this system through perspective of electrochemistry. Well, so today I have decided to approach this subject through material science. Okay, so I'm trying to give this tutorial talk how the electrochemistry can be used to study material science related to energy aspects. So there are, electrochemistry means what we are going to use electrochemical technique to analyze these materials. Okay, so there are various techniques available to the chemist or physicist. One such technique is cyclic voltammetry. Most of you must have heard about this technique, where what we do, I'm going to talk more about it. Here what we do, we apply the potential and measure the current response across electrode-electrode interface. Normally cyclic voltammetry, we measure at a scan rate of about 0.1 volt or 100 millivolt per second. Okay, but in case of, you can in fact do the same measurements at very high scan rate. It is called fast scan cyclic voltammetry. It has to be done in microelectrode. We're going to talk about microelectrode very soon. Where here in this case, we are basically scanning the potential instead of 0.1 volt, about 10,000 volts per second. So we can catch the fastest event like sub-nanoseconds or microseconds in charge transfer processes. This is possible to physical chemist or electrochemist. The third technique normal people use is rotating disc electrodes, where the electrode is not stationary. It is rotated with known RPM, and we can adjust the basically hydrodynamics across the electrode-electrode interface. And application of this such technique basically is to one can measure the rate of charge transfer across the interface. Okay, this is a very important technique to study ORR reaction or OER reaction or hydrogen evolution reactions. Here, all three techniques we use DC bias to the electrode. But if you apply the AC bias to the electrode, technique is called electrochemical impedance spectroscopy. Okay, there's one more important technique many physical chemists and physicists use to study the interfaces. But today, I have decided to introduce to you one very important technique called scanning electrochemical microscopy, sometimes called SECM. Okay, so what is this technique, SECM? In SECM, basically in case of electroanalytical technique, we have normally three variables. One is potential, other is current, and third one is time. For example, in case of voltammetry, what we do basically, you apply the potential and measure the limiting current. What you do here basically, you apply the potential, wait for some time, let current stabilize, and sample that current. If you keep on doing that, you get this kind of voltammogram. It is called steady state voltammogram. Okay, you can go ahead and you can mix the current with time called chronoamperometry. Here in this technique, what you do, you apply a potential pulse and sample the current. Okay, it is called chronoamperometry. Similar to chronoamperometry, we have chronopotentiometry. Here, in this case, we apply current pulse and sample the potential as function of time. Of course, we have cyclic voltammetry. The difference between voltammetry and cyclic voltammetry here is that here in this case, we measure the steady state. We apply the potential, wait for some time, and sample the current. In case of cyclic voltammetry, what you do, we measure time current in real time. So it is basically the x-axis is not only a potential but also time, because if you change the scan rate, the profile will change in cyclic voltammetry. Okay, so it is not only the technique where you are measuring current as a function of potential, but also as a function of time, and that is the difference between voltammetry and cyclic voltammetry. Now, these all four techniques are basically, we have chosen the variables potential, current, and time. Suppose if you add one more dimension, that distance in this, then we have one more technique called scanning electrochemical microscopy. What we do here basically is that we have now a small probe called tip or ultra micro electrode, which we bring towards the substrate of interest or electrode and measure tip current as a function of distance between tip, that is a probe, and the substrate. So kind of response we get. And this response basically is very important because this response has got a lot of information about kinetics of charge transfer reaction. So some of you must have used a technique like atomic force microscopy. We call it AFM. In AFM, what you do basically is here you know that we are measuring the attractive force, sometimes van der Waals force, between the cantilever of the tip and the substrate. Substrate normally here we use is an insulating substrate. That's why AFM is useful to do biological samples or polymeric sample. Okay, to see when you are not, it's not possible to see the microscopy with scanning electron microscopy. Normally you go for AFM in non-conducting sample. Here, obviously, we are measuring attractive force between the tip and the substrate, and we raster this and generate the image for topography. One more technique you are all aware of, that is scanning tunneling microscopy, which is called STM. I think lots of pictures of atomic pictures, or we can see atoms of gold surface. This is done by scanning tunneling microscopy. Here, what you do, we bring the tungsten probe, okay, near the conducting substrate, and what we measure is tunneling current. So here, response is tunneling current. The response is force here in case of AFM. But now I have one more technique in my hand. This is called scanning electrochemical microscopy, where the small microelectrode is brought towards the conducting or semiconducting or insulating substrate. And here we choose a redox reaction here. Redox reaction means electron transfer reaction with some molecule called redox molecule. That is O after reduction getting into R. Okay, we choose the reaction such that R would get back into O. So I am generating a feedback mechanism between the electrode and the substrate. Substrate could be conducting, semiconducting, or insulating. And then I get so-called Faradic contrast. We're going to discuss the what is Faradic contrast, so that I can now measure the electrochemical activity of the substrate by bringing this probe towards the substrate. Substrate means sample of interest, maybe semiconductor film, maybe polymer film, maybe some other maybe SAMs, basically self-assembled monolayers. Could be, there are a lot of choices over here. We can, it's up to us. Well, so why SECM? one of the advantage of scanning electrochemical microscopy is I can measure basically the rate of electron transfer reaction without touching the substrate. Normally what happens, especially in thin films, I have to study the electrochemical activity of thin film. I have to apply bias or potential. Once I apply bias or potential, what happens, the film comes out, peels off. Some of you must have noticed this part. So films comes out. So here in this case, I don't apply any bias to the substrate. I just bring a probe and measure the rate of electron transfer reaction. It's a very important advantage for electrochemist. Without polarizing the substrate, I can measure now the rate of electron transfer reaction. In fact, I can generate now a map, a 2D, 3D kind of map here, where I can now map basically in this which part of the substrate is electrochemically active and which part is not. Okay, so it can be used to mapping the electrochemical activity of the substrate. The important application of SCCM, which many of us don't know basically, is in biology. It is very widely used for imaging live cell. This optical microscopy image of the live cell, which is quite flat and generic. But if you do the same thing with the SCCM, you've got a lot of information stored in it. Basically, we can locate where is the nuclei of the cell and where is the reactive oxygen is generating. We're going to discuss this part also. And of course, we can use that as a deep pen lithography. So I can have a pattern basically on this particular substrate. So a lot of applications are with SCCM. But we are focusing on this kind of application where electrochemists use to study the electron transfer rates. Okay. Well, so in next about 35 minutes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give some small tutorial on SCCM technique. Here I'm going to talk about voltammetry with ultramicro electrode, and various modes, especially feedback modes which is used in SCCM. I have chosen very 4 example to illustrate how it is useful for the material research. Here, for example, I'm going to discuss insulator to metal transitions in superlattice of silo nanoparticle. It may interest to physicists. Okay, I'm going to explain all the terms. What is superlattice? What is transition? I'm going to explain all these terms. Okay, one can measure the rate of photoelectron transfer reaction across semiconductor electron interface. Especially, it is the heart of photoelectrochemical solar cell. I'm going to illustrate you how one can use the SCCM for mapping the electrochemical site on single strand of carbon fiber. Now, how one can measure the conductivity of graphene oxide film under a bias condition. So all this example I have chosen to illustrate the strength of the SCCM technique. Well, let us start with this first important heart of the SCCM is the small electrode, which I'm talking about is ultra micro electrode. This ultra micro electrode is a cross section of ultra micro electrode. Is a vertical cross section. This is a horizontal cross section. You can see here. Here, very small capillary. Thus, the gold or platinum wire of size 1 micron to about 10 micron, very small, is almost 10 times to 100 times smaller than our thickness of our hair. Okay, it is sealed inside this capillary, and now it is now grinded such a way that we get like pencil-like thing, but at the bottom there's a flat surface. Okay, so this is a cross section of that particular view, the end view. You can see the gold wire or platinum wire and glass shell you can see around it. So typical microscope, if you take the photograph under the microscope, it looks like this. So these are the optical image of the electrodes what we have prepared in our lab. Okay, you can see now is a bright portion is a electrode, that is a metallic part, and dull portion what you see basically a glass shell. So this is a down section basically, is the bottom section of the electrode. So kind of electrode like broken pencil we use, right? Exactly the same way. But what is the advantage of ultra micro electrode in electrochemistry? Obviously, it is small electrode, so I can have higher spatial resolution. Okay, so I can measure, I can now do electrochemistry with very small substrate like carbon fiber. Okay, since electrode is very small, it draws very small current. Current is in nanoamp or picoamp. It's a very small current actually. Advantage of small current is that it has got small current resistance drop, sometimes called IR drop. Less IR drop, it gives better measurements in potential. I think you remember in 12th standard we did our potentiometry. In potentiometry, what we are seeing is a galvanic deflection, null detection. So when my current is flowing zero, when no current is flowing, that is a correct or accurate potential where we are noted, if you remember this. So it is very important in potential measurement to have no current or a small current. So in case of this electromicroelectrode, this technique is very useful, okay, to measure the accurate potential. And another important part of this, it gives, since my area of electrode is very small, okay, it gives very negligible capacitive current. Okay, if you know that in electrochemistry we have two types of current we are dealing with. One is Faradic current due to electrochemical reaction or redox reaction, and another current is basically due to charging of double layer capacitance across electrode interface. So that gives capacitive current. So this is the enemy for electrochemist. It interferes in the measurement. So we don't want actually capacitive current, but it is not possible to have no capacitive current, but at least we can reduce the capacitive current. Okay, so this microelectrode gives very small capacitive current. And more important, as a physical chemist, it gives completely different interfacial dynamics we're going to see right now. See, in normal, I just first discussed the voltammetry on macroelectrode. Macroelectrode means electrode of the size in millimeter normally we use in the laboratory. This is in this I have shown how the waveform is applied to the electrode. Here in this case, potential is increased linearly with time, and again after some point decreasing with time. So I'm changing the potential with some scan rate and coming back to original position. That's why the technique is called cyclic voltammetry, because I'm cycling the potential. Here in this down illustration, I have shown what happens on electrode interface when we scan the potential. Okay, and right hand side, what you see here is how the current is going to change with applied potential as function of time. Here I have shown very simple illustration where platinum electrode is immersed in the redox solution. Redox means what? The molecule which can accept the electron or lose the electron. Then molecule has basically molecule has accepting orbital which can take the electron, and it has got donating orbitals which can release the electrons. Okay, so I have, for example, I have got ferric ferrous couple here I am putting inside. So ferric will accept the electron and get into ferrous, and vice versa. So I have a redox molecule in the solution, and now I am applying potential and changing the potential with time, like with this scan rate I have shown on the top with this waveform. So what will happen now? When you start applying the potential, nothing will happen, because unless and until my potential is not basically equal to that of redox potential of that molecule, nothing will happen. So if I apply a bias, I'll just illustrate you now. If I apply a bias, okay, what will happen now at that particular potential? What will happen once the potential is supposed to be close to that potential? For example, in ferric ion here, okay, will get reduced into ferrous ion. So the concentration of ferric ion will decrease at electrode-electrode interface. Okay, so less ferric ions, okay, in the interface than that of bulk. If I apply more potential, what will happen? More ferric ion will get reduced, and so on. And response to that, current will start increasing. You can see here in the illustration, as we apply more and more negative bias. And after some time, we will find that there is no ferric ions present near the electrode interface, because all ferric ions are already undergo reduction reaction. So what will happen now? There is no ferric ions, then there is no molecule, okay, or species to accept the electron. Then what will happen? Then basically this will now current will start decreasing if you apply more and more bias, and that's what we see in this voltammogram, as current response decreases like this, and we get peak here. If you apply more negative bias, you find that there is no ferric ions, and this layer is called depletion layer. Because why called depletion layer? Because now there is no redox present nearby the electrode interface. Then there is another process sets in. Basically here concentration of ferric ions is high. Here there is no ferric ions. So what will happen now? There will be a diffusion of ions from bulk to the interface. Okay, and now current is limited by diffusion process, and this is called diffusion limiting current. So you get diffusion limiting current like this over here. So this is kind of cyclic voltammogram you see here. If you switch the potential and if you reverse the potential, exactly reverse response will you get, because of ferrous ions which are formed at the interface, you get oxidized back to ferric ions. This complete basically cyclic voltammogram for ferrous couple. When you see the cyclic voltammogram, we say the electron transfer is reversible one. I think you must have studied your MS days. Well, now interesting part happens at the microelectrode. First, let us understand what happens in interface of macro or big electron. Just now we have seen here in this illustration. I have shown the platinum electrode part, or this is brown color, and the glass shell, what you can see here. Once you apply potential, ferric ions will get reduced, and what will happen? Form depletion layer. If you see the size of depletion layer, it is in micron, and if you see the size of electrode, it's in millimeter. So this depletion layer is very thin, like wafer thin around the platinum electrode on the interface. Okay, it is like putting the carpet on the floor, very thin one. And obviously, this is going to be a linear diffusion from bulk to the electrode-electron interface, like this as shown here. Okay, so the whole process is because of linear diffusion. That's why we see the cycloholotomogram of this shape. Okay, but what will happen if my electrode is very small in size? If my electrode is very, very small in size, now my electrode is, mind well, this electrode is in millimeter size, and now my electrode is micron size. It is called ultra micro electrode. Now my depletion layer is in micrometer in size, and my electrode also in micrometer size. So what will happen now? My electrode and depletion layer are comparable size. Then it will not anymore negligible than the size of electrode. And now instead of linear diffusion, now I am going to have hemispherical or spherical diffusion. Now this is three-dimensional diffusion. This is a one-dimensional diffusion. This is faster. Okay, and if you see the current response on ultra micro electrode, you will get kind of response like this. Okay, S-shaped response, like typically we used to see in polarography. Remember this, in polarography we used to get S-shaped response. Well, so what will happen then? This is a typical steady state response of the electrode, which what we have prepared in our lab. This is a picture of this electrode, and this is a response. Okay, the kind of response we get in case of micro electrode. And macro electrode, we get cycloholotomogram like this. That is the main difference between a macro electrode and micro electrode or ultra micro electrode. Well, interesting thing happens after this point. Now again I have an electrode, we say ultra micro electrode. I have gold part, and now it is polarized one. I applied sufficient negative potential so that O is getting reduced into R. Obviously there is going to be steady state, and there is spherical diffusion as shown by the small arrows. Everything is going on as we discussed before, and we get steady state response like this. Okay, this is current, this is potential, and I subscript T infinity indicates tip current. Tip means ultra micro electrode current at infinite distance from the substrate. This is my substrate. Here in this illustration, I have chosen substrate that is insulator. Insulator is a notional one. That means my substrate is not electroactive. It is electrochemically passive substrate. Here I have chosen Teflon. Okay. Suppose if I polarize such electrode, which I got this kind of response, and somehow I bring this electrode closer to the substrate, which is insulating substrate, as close as micron close, then what will happen? Now basically there's a very small gap between electrode, that is my ultra micro electrode, and the substrate. Now my diffusion basically is hindered because there is nothing, my species cannot enter because there's small gap basically. So it will definitely hinder, and obviously current is going to decrease at tip zero distance, tip infinite distance. Okay, so I'm measuring basically the tip current as a function of distance from the substrate. If you do this process continuously, which is shown in this illustration, here in this case, SECM probe, which is shown here on the top, is approaching toward the insulating substrate. Okay, this gold part is this yellow part is basically electrode, and what you see the contours are a hemispherical diffusion. Okay, and in the down illustration, tip current versus distance between substrate and the tip. Okay, and what you can see, when you approach to the insulating substrate, my current decreases. Okay, and this plot is called approach curve, and kind of feedback, since my current decreases with distance, it is called negative feedback. Okay, so this is a negative feedback what we see in case of insulating substrate. Now if I choose now the conducting substrate or electrochemically active substrate, exactly same experiment, only I replace the insulator, that is Teflon, with conductor, that is platinum. Again at infinite I get same S curve as we have seen before, but when you bring this electrode very close, what will happen? Current step up about 10 times. Okay, surprisingly current is very high compared to infinite distance. Now question is, now why current basically step up like this? We'll going to discuss that part, but before that, this kind of feedback is called positive feedback because current increases with the distance. So insulator gives negative feedback and conductor gives positive feedback. Well, this is again another similar illustration here. Here instead of insulating substrate, I have now conducting substrate. Now in case approach curve, you can see when you approach toward the electrode, my current step up almost 10 times. You can see here. Okay, so my insulating gives negative feedback, insulator gives negative feedback, and my conductor gives positive feedback. Well, there is now question is why there's a positive feedback to the conductor. I will explain to you what here in this again I have shown ultra micro electrode here. That is yellow part is a metal part which is micron size and a glass shell here. You can see that. Now when you bring this electrode very close to substrate, conducting substrate, now we can see observe there are I have divided this region into two regions. One is region A2 marked as a region A2, and just beneath this electrode is region A1. Okay. Now just focus on this region A1. Now in region A1, now O is getting reducing to R because my electrode is already polarized. Now if you see the concentration of O just below this the electrode, which is obviously since O is getting into R, my concentration of O is small or decreased compared to otherwise in region A1, A2. So now I have situation where concentration gradient between region A1 and A2, okay, connected by this conducting substrate. So one can think about this concentration cell where I have concentration of O different in two different compartments connected by conductor. So now because of this now this whole system will be now polarized, and now electrode will drive R getting into O back. So now O need not diffuse from the outside. O is already available continuously below the electrode surface. Okay, so these reactions keep on doing it, but it is called positive feedback, right? So keep on doing it. So current is very high because it is not limited by diffusion. Okay, already O is available just beneath this O because of this feedback or positive loop. So that's the reason why you get positive feedback. Well, you can do a lot of mathematics with that, and there is a basically analytical expression for this conductor. You can fit this data. In fact, you can validate the SCCM by using this kind of mathematics, and dot basically our experimental value, and this line is basically theoretical fitting into it. Okay, so this is for conducting substrate, and this is for insulating substrate. So one can validate SCCM data using this kind of mathematics, that this kind of fitting. Many people use COMSOL software for this. Sometimes in micro we write basically such program for fitting it. Well, in nutshell, what we have now for what tool we have in my hand now, I have now tool which can distinguish between electrochemical activity of the substrate. If substrate is electrochemically active or conductor, it gives me positive feedback. If my substrate is insulating or electrochemically passive, it gives me negative feedback. This is a carry-on message for next slide now. Well, there's one more way actually. We sometimes get in-between feedback. Actually, it is called basically limited feedback. Here in this case, in previous case, my rate of electron transfer on the electrode and rate of electron transfer on the substrate is exactly identical. So you get positive feedback. But sometimes what happens, rate of electron transfer at the substrate is smaller than tip rate constant. Okay, in that situation, what will happen? My current will be limited by Ks, not Kt. So we get less current. Okay, this is a very important mode actually in SCCM where I can measure now. Basically, I can measure the rate constant electron transfer reaction, and it's very, very important mode one can exploit to study OER reaction or ORR reaction or many other reactions. Well, I'm going to basically illustrate a very interesting example here. Of course, the work is quite old, but still is interesting one. Okay, especially physicists that time were interested in this kind of work basically. Well, this is the Mott-Hubbard insulating to metal transition in case of 2D superlattice silver nanoparticle. Don't worry about all this jargon of words and phrases. I'll explain to you what is 2D superlattice, what is Mott-Hubbard insulating metal transition. Basically, here in this case, how do you prepare this 2D superlattice? One can basically prepare silver nanoparticle, gold nanoparticle, cap with the capping agent like I have shown over here, and you can pour this solution at electrode, pour a solution in liquid air interface. Okay, it is called Langmuir blooded film. It will form layer of silver nanoparticle floating on the surface. Since they are equal distance, basically they are adjacent to hexagonal closed pack on the surface. Okay, now I have one interesting part here over here. It's a slider in a Langmuir blooded film. I can now compress this film by applying pressure from this side. So now my film is getting compressed means what? I'm bringing this particle close to each other. Okay, here now my particles are away from each other. Okay, there's no contact between one particle to another particle. So if you try to measure lateral conductivity of this film basically is insulating. But if you start compressing it, now what I'm doing, I'm compressing enough close, so now particle is quite close to each other. Then what will happen? Now electronic wave function of this one particle will get overlap with electronic wave function of other particle. I think you remember this tunneling effect in particle in a box problem. Okay, a finite size well. Where now there is a tunneling of, there's a finite probability of finding the wave function outside the box. Okay, exactly same thing happen over here. And now here basically my box is spherical. That's the only difference. So now my particles are so close that now there's finite overlapping between wave function of electronic wave function of this particle with this particle, and now this film suddenly become conducting. It was insulating, now become conducting. This transition is called Mott-Hubbard insulator to metal transition. Okay. Well, how do this is basically hypothesis, but how I'm going to measure it now? Question is, the Heath group is very famous for that. What they did basically, they use reflection of laser on the film. They took this film on Langmuir blooded trough and reflected the laser. You know that because of in metallic characteristic means what? Very high refractive index. So metal reflect the light because of high refractive index. That means what he did basically, he just shined the laser on the film when it was insulating, or when there is no much contact between them. You don't see any reflection of laser on the surface. But when you compress the film and this film is close enough, you start taking reflection of laser on the laser beam on the film. Well, this is again indirect measurements. What we have done actually, we exploited this SSM facility, or SSM techniques to measure this change in conductivity. I think you are already aware of, already remember this, that if my film is conducting, I'm going to get positive feedback. If film is insulating, I'm going to get negative feedback. Let us see what happens. This is a film in this Langmuir budget, this trough. That is this nanoparticle are floating at at the liquid air interface, and this is a kind of isotherm. Okay, this is a isotherm means normal isotherm. What we measure, pressure versus volume, right? In thermodynamics, here I'm measuring pressure versus area. Okay, and now I'm changing what if I apply more pressure, what will happen? Okay, if you apply more pressure, what if you change the area of the trough, what will happen to pressure here? Okay, so this is the typical isotherm over here. So what experiment is a very simple one, though it is quite complicated to perform. We applied various compression level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the film is getting more and more complex, and measure the feedback of SSM from the down. Okay, initially my film is not compressed. Okay, obviously I expect negative feedback. That's what I see over here in the plot 1 approach curve. Okay, but once I start applying more and more pressure, film is getting into conducting mode, and you can see eventually it become completely conductor and give positive feedback. So it's a clear cut basically evidence that basically this transition does occur in this kind of film. Well, there's another very simple illustration of this conducting and insulating business. Here you all know we use graphene oxide for various purposes. Graphene oxide we use for hydrogen evolution reaction in the fuel cell, in the solar cell, everywhere you use graphene oxide. But now once you polarize graphene oxide, when you apply graphene oxide, it undergo electron transfer reaction, and it might undergo reduction also. So graphene oxide as such basically is a insulating. Okay, but when once we reduce, you know that we reduce chemically sometimes with sodium borohydride or hydrazine. Okay, you remember this? Okay, so graphene oxide, and we form reduced graphene oxide. But you can do same thing with electrochemistry. We can apply negative bias and reduce this graphene oxide into reduced graphene oxide. But am I going to measure this change in conductivity in situ? Yes, by cesium. What we did again, you know that now the whole game, we measure the feedback on graphene oxide before polarization. We expect what is my hypothesis is, if it is not polarized, I get negative feedback. If I polarize and if from reduced graphene oxide, I should get positive feedback. Okay, and if I get in between electron transfer, I will get in between limited feedback. Okay, that's what happens actually in actual experiment. This is the basically SSM measurements has been done on graphene oxide film at various applied potential. When potential is low, I get negative feedback. That means my graphene oxide is still in graphene oxide state. But when I keep on applying negative bias, okay, when graphene oxide is getting into reduced graphene oxide and start getting positive feedback, which indicates basically it is a conducting. It's a very nice illustration basically how an SSM can be used for all these purposes. Well, I would like to share one more example, which I'm happen to involve in this measurements. Okay, it's my work in when I was doing postdoc with Alan, but 20 years very old work, but still it is people are using this work for various purposes. Well, here what we did here, you know, that time even right now also photoelectrochemistry is a very important thing to develop this photoelectrochemical solar cell. Here in this case, what we did basically we studied this photoelectrochemistry using SCM at semiconductor electrolyte interface. That is, here in this case we have chosen cadmium sulfide electrolyte interface. Some of the physicists or chemists also knows if you immerse semiconductor in the solution, redox solution, it gives this kind of band bending. It in fact forms Schottky junction. Okay. Now if you eliminate such junction, okay, by light, where frequency is higher than the band gap, what will happen? It will form electron hole pair. It's called charge pair formation, we say. Okay, so electron basically go inside because lower energy is here, and hole will bubble out. So there is separation of electron hole pair, and it is basically a basis of basically electrochemical solar cell where light is converted into electricity. Well, charge pairs are formed, but what happens? Charge pairs can also recombine to form a heat. This is called recombination. These are reversible of this reaction. But suppose if you add an interesting molecule inside, suppose if you add, for example, triethanolamine, basically it is a electron, it is called hole scavenger. Amines basically are hole scavengers. So they will take away the holes, okay, and now electrons are now reside on the electrode-electrode interface. Now what I can do, I can introduce now the molecules like methyl halogen, which can accept the electron. And now I can measure, since transfer of hole to the triethanolamines is a faster process compared to the electron transfer. So rate determining step here is basically transfer of electron from semiconductor to methyl halogen. So I can now measure the rate of charge transfer between electron transfer on the methyl halogen. I think you must have realized by this time what exactly explain what we have done. Setup is very simple, but explain is very difficult actually. Here what we prepare cadmium sulfide nanoparticle films here on the conducting glass, and we are eliminate from behind. Okay, in the solution we are taking methyl halogen. Obviously, when there is no illumination, okay, like dark, there is no electron transfer, there is no charge transfer, we get negative feedback. Okay, but once you apply shine the light on the film, that is under illumination, we start getting positive feedback because there is electron transfer between electrode and the probe. This facility we exploited and measure the rate of charge transfer. This effect of light intensity, effect of triethanolamine concentration, effect of methyl halogen concentration. What we can see basically various rates actually. We determine the rate of charge transfer, which is a very important parameter to develop the device. Well, this is a 20 years old work, but even recently, about 4 years back, someone has used this exactly same experimental setup to study bismuth vanadate, okay, and MO-doped bismuth vanadate basically, okay. It's a very important semiconductor used in water splitting. Here, exactly same scheme is developed. This is a bismuth vanadate film, where ferric and ferrous redox couple is used, SSM tip is brought, and feedback is measured, okay, and compared with bismuth vanadate and MO-doped bismuth vanadate. Now we can immediately analyze this data. You can see there is a negative feedback, and after elimination, there is positive feedback. You can see here. Okay, sorry. But in case of MO bismuth vanadate, you can see positive feedback is more, is larger compared to bismuth vanadate alone. What it indicates towards that basically MO bismuth vanadate is very good material for water splitting reaction that are bismuth vanadate. They quantify everything basically. It's interesting paper. You can go through this paper. The point here I want to make is that this such kind of techniques people are using consistently to study such kind of problems. And so far what we are doing basically, my SCM probe was actually coming from the Z axis and coming down. That means I am basically measuring only X movement. Now suppose if I do measurements in XY plane at fixed Z height, okay, is illustrated in this scheme. Here the green color, this is I have shown us a substrate, and SCM probe is moving at a fixed height. You can see here. Now I am measuring again. I am measuring the O getting into R. Now you know that when my electrode is coming closer to my substrate, there is a hill here on the substrate, the morphological hill is there on the substrate, what will happen is going to be hinder diffusion and current will decrease like this. Current versus position of X position, you can see here in this plot. So current will decrease like this. Okay, and again come back. So now using SCCM, I can study the morphology of this of the substrate. Okay, I can study the hills and valleys on the substrate. More interesting part is over here. Suppose my electrode is catalytically active, some portion catalytically active, that's electrocatalytically active. Then what will happen? I suddenly start seeing the hill over here. So now I can now raster, I can now scan my SCCM probe on XY direction, and I can now identify which part of this electrode or substrate is electrochemically more active and which part of the substrate is electrochemically not that active. Now I can identify and locate this point on the electrode surface. So this is a very important application of SCCM. Okay. Well, this strength of SCCM we are illustrated by this another example. Okay, where we did this work on single strand of carbon fiber. The single strand of carbon fiber means how small it is. It is basically 10 times to 50 times smaller than our thickness over here. Okay, and why this fiber is interesting? Because of this reason. In case of basically this fiber basically is we found that this fiber is very active in detecting dopamine in the blood sample. Okay, dopamine, as you all know, dopamine is a neurotransmitter, basically a very important biomolecule, okay, bioactive molecule in our body, which basically tells us, or in fact, it tells us our mood. When you are in good mood, happy, it produces a lot of dopamine. And it is basically responsible, is a depletion of dopamine by old age. You know that Alzheimer's disease is because of depletion of dopamine. Well, now we need small electrodes because dopamine is very difficult to detect because it is this concentration of dopamine only in our brain. And basically to determine this, normally what they do in case of animal model, they put electrode in the brain, okay, and measure the dopamine. For that, you need a very small size micron size electrode to have minimum invasion actually. So that's why these electrodes are developed. So now we have this single strand of carbon fiber, okay, which is electrode. You can see this small fiber electrode attached to the platinum support, okay, and now we can measure the dopamine concentration. Basically here in this case, steady state voltammogram is measured as a function of concentration of dopamine from 1 micromolar to 15 micromolar. You can see here. Here you have plotted the steady state current versus concentration is a linear change with steady state concentration. Here in this case, differential pulse voltammetry, I'm not going to discuss, but I want to illustrate that here in this point that carbon fiber is illustrations basically electrode material for dopamine sensing. Well, but now in case carbon fiber, the surface of carbon fiber is made up of graphitic plane. Okay, you know that, right? sp2 hybridized plane, and that doesn't have any catalytic activity actually known to be, because it doesn't have unsaturation. For doing catalytic activity, you need unsaturation on the substrate. Okay, so that's something will get adsorbed on the surface. But in case of graphitic surface, we don't have such possibility. But still, the question is now why this fiber is so much electrochemically active. Okay, when we see under this microscope, okay, what we saw here, there are a lot of small black spots on this fiber. And we thought that those black spots are responsible for this catalytic activity. Okay, so what we did that we managed to measure the SCCM on exactly same portion of the fiber. And what we found that where there are black spots, I mark P, Q, R, and S, we found very strong catalytic activity, electrochemical activity. That means it tells me that this black fiber basically are more electrocatalytic active than the rest of the fiber. And we have substantiated this work with Raman spectra. Basically, we measure in situ Raman spectra where we found that at that particular spots we get more stronger D band. You know, D band is defect band basically. Is responsible for defects. Is responsible for pseudo sp2 hybridized or sp3 hybridized basically orbitals over there. That means there's unsaturation at that point. So substantial work with Raman spectroscopy. Well, this is the controller experiment with platinum. We went ahead, I'm not going to discuss, we did a lot of mathematics in that and extracted basically the concentration, this effective rate constant or charge transfer in this reaction. Well, this SCCM for used for many other purposes. People are used. This is a typical work for Alan J. Bard group, not recently, about 15 years back. Here they try to evaluate 30 dots of various catalyst where composition is changed from M is palladium, silver, gold with cobalt. Cobalt is known for ORR reaction. ORR reaction is very important fuel cell. Okay, so very important reaction for fuel cell. But to analyze each and every catalyst, suppose we have to analyze 30 catalysts, 30 composition, it's going to take 6 months for that. What he has done, basically, his group has done, he has put various spots, small spots actually, of various composition of cobalt with various metals. You can see here, about 30 spots. And they analyze, basically, it one go. And from this current response, they could have identified this particular composition of 10 to 30% cobalt is very active for ORR reaction. Okay, so in one go, I can determine the activity of various composition of this particular catalyst. It's a biological activity where a lot of people, biologists, use this SCCM. I'll explain to this slide to you. Here, these are all, you know that in many cell, they give, if you put under the stress, okay, they produce this reactive oxygen, hydrogen peroxide. But if you see normal micrograph of this particular cell, you don't see any difference. But if you do SCCM measurements, what SCCM probing here? SCCM basically probing hydrogen peroxide, which is reactive oxygen, which is produced when cell is under the stress. Okay, and where it is produced? Near the nucleus of the cell. So using SCCM, one can immediately find out under the stress where exactly which part of the cell is active. Okay, it's a very important application of the SCCM. Then one can study corrosion. When corrosion occurs, the corrosion pits basically are insulating. Okay, so what one can do here, we can scan this, do a raster this portion of the substrate. Here in this case, the steel, which is under magnets. It's a magnetic surface basically, and we have raster this with the SCCM. The part which is basically formed, which are oxidized, okay, or corrode, it forms yellow patches over here. So one can identify which portion of this steel is undergo corrosion. Those are actually this setup. Now I will stop in 5 or 10 minutes. Now basically we have, if you want to really see, this is a typical SCCM setup. What we need is a bipotentiostat, and there is a kind of piezo translator where we can change the position of the electrode in XYZ position with nanometer accuracy. There's a video camera, basically video microscope. We can see the tip positions, and whole thing can be worked together. Okay, if you want to see, I have one setup in my group in Department of Chemistry, Pune University. Well, so I will before acknowledge, I just want to again recap what we have done. Basically, in this whole talk, I given the tutorial talk on electrochemical techniques pertaining to materials chemistry or material science, which are useful, these materials which are useful in energy applications. Okay, and I try to illustrate how technique like SCCM can be used to study such kind of problems. Okay, where these problems we involve to determine rate of electron transfer reaction, because higher rate is, if I have to really find out which material is important for my ORR reaction or OER reaction, I must know the rate of electron transfer reaction. Okay, so if I know the material which are more active, I will come to know from SCCM measurement only. I don't want to go ahead and form the fuel cell. Before going there only, I come to know this material is active and this material is not active. Well, I would like to, before I stop, I would like to acknowledge my mentor, Professor Alan Bard, from which group I have learned all these techniques. Recently, I was in Prashant Kamath groups, I have worked on CGTS materials there with him. It is a part of my Fulbright fellowship program. My whole work is financed by various funding agencies, including DST, BRNS, DBT, Department of Atomic Energy, ISRO, and European Commission, of course, Fulbright. Well, so I would like to acknowledge this is my tentacles, my students, the work which I have basically shown you, or I have demonstrated to you. It is by 2 students, Brushali Joshi and Ganesh Markar. Brushali now did, after my group, she did a postdoc in a very reputed group in the US. Okay, now she is a lecturer in Mumbai, one of the universities. Ganesh Markar is now, he is from analytical chemistry. Okay, he joined Mettler Toledo in Mumbai. Hanuman and Yogini is Springer Nature, right now working. Satish Bhattu is now a senior scientist in Merck's. Durgasha Podwal now doing postdoc in US. Yogesh was lecturer in Mumbai University. Now he came back and joined a postdoc in Pune University. And Swarda Khatavkar is still working with me. Well, So thank you very much for your attention. Now you are free to ask me questions we wish to. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Am I audible, sir? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I request all participants to write questions in the chat box, and so I can discuss. We can discuss these questions one by one. Sir, one question is in chat box. Uh,
Where is that?
yeah, by Pooja Sharma. She's asking, in positive feedback mode, do we need to apply a potential to the substrate or not? On what
No,
factor does it depends?
we don't need to apply potential to the in positive feedback to the substrate. Okay. Positive feedback means you get positive feedback, okay, without applying any bias. Of course, you can make negative feedback into positive feedback by applying potential,
Mhm,
okay,
mhm.
but we don't need to apply otherwise.
Okay. Uh, our colleague Dr. Alka Deshmukh is also asking about, would you like to please elaborate how the biological molecules are applied stress in case of H2O2 scanning?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, she is asking how is the biological molecules are applied stress in case of H2O2 scanning.
I am not really expert in this particular subject. Very frank with you. Normally, the stress is normally given by chemical change in pH, perhaps. Okay, by stimulus may be light. There are many stimuli you can use, but I am not expert in that particular field. But definitely, it is known that if you give some stimuli to the cell,
Mhm, mhm.
if you put under the stress, it will react to oxygen. In fact, that's why we if you our case also, if you go under the stress, we produce a lot of free radical, and that is the reason we get a lot of diseases.
So third question is, why does the nucleus look more prominent in the live image of cell? Lumina is asking this question.
Yeah, because see, that is a whole focus of experiment basically. This whole that's what I read in the paper, that mitochondrial activity is more near the nucleus, okay, and because of that, it produces more reactive oxygen, and that's why it produces because what we are measuring here is peroxide, which is coming out of cell, and we are measuring the spatial distribution of peroxide on the cell, single cell. So obviously, nuclei producing more peroxide in that particular experiment, and also it is coming out very prominently in the SSM measurements, which is not seen in the normal microscopy. And that is a basis of that is a basic importance of SCM.
Okay. Okay. So I think, yeah, there is one more question by Pooja. Can we use any redox pair as a redox mediator?
One of the condition of redox pair is it should be reversible one. Remember this, we talk about reversible cyclohexamogram. Redox pair, which we call reversible one, which gives this reversible cyclohexamogram. For example, K3FeCN6 and K4FeCN6. Okay, that is a reversible redox couple we use normally. But if you use some other redox couple, if it's not reversible one, it's not useful to us. So we have to choose smartly redox couple which is a reversible one, which can transfer the electron reversibly with the electrode. Examples are steric serous, ferric ferrous. Okay, there are lots of couples available at various potential range. One can choose smartly.
Okay. Yeah, my question is, in most of the experiments, this PEC, photoelectrochemical water splitting, and the current and the voltage generally we record. Okay, can we analogous this similar thing with this setup with the SCM, means how much photo current and if there is a light provision and these things?
Yes, actually nowadays people use LED. In my case, about 20 years back, there were no LEDs. So
Oh.
I use a torch light that time. Okay.
Okay, okay,
Normally the people use LEDs. Okay.
okay.
You see
Mm-hmm.
the second experiment which I have described to you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
paper with bismuth, this vanadate, okay, where
Mm-hmm.
basically they use LED and optical fiber.
Okay, okay. So that photo, I mean to say, supply source of the flux and the corresponding with the solar simulator flux. So that might be different. I mean to say, so you have
You have to calibrate that. You have to
yeah.
put with standard cell. You need to calibrate it.
Okay. There is a one question by Sri Lakshmi S. Kumar. Sir, are there are other application of ACCM in biology?
Samir, I can't see your video. Can you show me your video or my video? Can't see anything.
Yours.
No one's video actually. I don't say nothing. I see nothing.
There is a
Okay.
video.
Please go ahead with your question. Please go ahead.
Yeah, there are videos. Just 1 minute. I think I can see your videos. Everything.
So that is dangerous.
Can you go to that? Okay.
Anyway, go ahead and question.
Okay. So there is a one question by Sri Lakshmi S. Kumar. Are there other applications of ACCM in biology?
I am not really expert in biological applications. There are plenty of material. If you just Google SCCM and biology, okay, definitely you get a lot of material. There are plenty of material. But I never myself did any experiment SCCM and biology myself. I basically one of our group focus is material science and especially energy materials. So for most experiments we did with the those kind of materials.
Okay. So this is the scanning we are doing with the ACCM. This is contact mode or generally just non-contact when it is near to the substrate. I want to say that can be.
AFM we do that. There is nothing like contact mode here. In fact, here in this case, we should not touch electrode to the surface.
So that is very important. Yeah.
Otherwise, the surface will get contaminated.
Yes.
You have to do electrochemical reaction on the surface, right?
Yes.
If the surface get contaminated, you will not able to have. See, that is the biggest challenge with electrochemistry. You are not able to standardize like a spectroscopy only because of surface. Electrochemistry did not become so famous as spectroscopy only because of that. Because surface, that's why dropping mercury electrode we use for polarography because it gives clean surface. Correct. Malik is asking, sir, like the ACCM apparatus can detect free oxygen in cell under stress, can it also detect under free radicals in the live cell? So anything basically which has redox activity with the electrode can be detected. Okay. It's not important biological cell or the substrate is not that important. Only substrate should able to undergo electron transfer directly or indirectly. That means it should produce molecules which can eventually undergo electron transfer with the probe, like peroxide our case. Correct. So anything which is electrochemically active directly or indirectly can be measured with SCCM probe. So I have seen some applications, if there are multiple, I mean to say this simulated kind of a sample. If you dope, no, we have arrays of sample we can produce substrates. And can we just scan it? Which area is better of that? No. Yes, one can do that. Yes. Definitely, that is application system. Yes. So that is the one of the best. I mean to say, if you control the sampling, so you can detect which sample is better, and you can, I mean to say, you can reproduce that in with other techniques and other. Okay. See, the heart of whole SCCM is the electrode. Yes, correct. Preparation of electrode. Yes. Okay. When you prepare electrode, basically, when you prepare 100 electrodes, only 10 survives. Yes. Out of 10, only one is useful. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So good sample preparation, good electrode preparation is fundamental. Chemistry is remain as a experimental science. You need to learn from the expert. And learn from the book. That is the biggest challenge with electrochemistry. So there is some problem when this tip is going to rupture. Sometimes you have to control, or there is a sensors. It can be there. I mean to say you have to control very. I mean to just like AFM, STM tip. Okay. All these techniques been controlled very minutely, or there is sometimes some accident things can happen. Yes, electrode get crash. Sometimes it get crash. If it is students is especially in starting point before training or you need a training for that. Yes. You crash the electrode many times. Nowadays you get modern machines. I have got very basic machine, but there are modern machines basically they have got another probe, they put it so that we can have constant distance measurement.
Okay. Okay.
So electrodes are judging the distance of electrode, have feedback of electrode and a substrate. So it keep you avoiding basically getting smashed with the electrode surface, because it's important is to leveling, right? So your
Yes.
electrodes are moving in micron size. If your
Mm.
sample is not leveled properly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then you
Okay.
have bound to hit somewhere on the electrode substrate.
Okay. 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 I think we have covered questions from the chat box.
Okay.
Uh,
You can open up, and if someone wants to ask a direct question, can ask actually.
okay. Okay. I'll do that also. Any participant who want to speak can raise their hand so I can just unmute them. Anyone? You can see there is a reaction box where you can raise your hand or thumb. I think I couldn't find anyone.
It's okay.
Uh, So I think shall we close, sir? Meeting. So I'll no interaction further. Okay, I can see somebody in the chat box once again. I think no other. So okay, thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for your valuable information in this talk. Fortunately, we have some good students in chemistry, physics, so we find some collaborative work in future and do some kind of positive.
Oh, sure. It
I
is
mean to
first,
say, yes,
actually, it is first.
definitely. This technique is a I mean to say very unique technique, and hopefully we will get something out of it. Okay,
Yes,
so
student only actually. This
yes.
talk is actually oriented to students only, for students only.
Yes. So on behalf of Deccan Education Society's Ferguson College and IQSU and this DBT Government of India initiative, I thank you, Professor Han, to give a valuable talk and informative talk on ACCM. And thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate.
Thanks for
Thank
your
you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank
time.
you, sir. Thank
I will now exit, right? I leave, right?
Yes, I'll end the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.